This trial has shown that under the stress of national crisis, ordinary men, even able and extraordinary men, can delude themselves into the commission of crimes and atrocities so vast and heinous as to stagger the imagination. No one sat through this trial can ever forget it. The sterilization of men because of their political beliefs, the murder of children, how easily that can happen. There are those in our country today, too, who speak of the protection of the country, of survival. The answer to that is survival is what? The country isn't a rock, and it isn't an extension of oneself. It's what it stands for, when standing for something is the most difficult. Before the people of the world, let it now be noted in our decision here that this is what we stand for: justice, truth, and the value of a single human being. Well, Abby Mann was not always so high-spirited, you know. I'd want to be an actor, but I realized I didn't look like Tyrone Power. And, I tried writing. And then I said to myself, here are all these things, they pass in the night. Wouldn't it be nice to have something beyond that? Just simply to help people and to be remembered for that. You know, time humbles all of us, and all of us are defeated in one way or another at the end. But I wanted something I wouldn't be defeated at. And if I help people, if I help to change the world, just a molecule, that would be something worth having. For instance, take the McCarthy period. Such terrible things were being done, you know, wonderful writers. It was before I came to Hollywood, just before I came. Wonderful writers weren't working. Judges were making rationalizations for putting people like Dalton Trumbo, one of the best writers this town has ever seen, in jail. And you wonder, what kind of monsters were they who were sitting on the judge's bench that did this? But they were ordinary guys. And part of it was a rationalization to keep in public favor. But they were ruining people's lives, and some of them were otherwise very nice people, good parents, good citizens. A single life, a single Dalton Trumbo, a single John Garfield, they could be sacrificed so that they would warn other people by doing this action that if a real communist came along, they better be careful. So therefore, the talents of these people weren't important because of the general good. But they would be capable of doing this and give themselves the rationalization, what is the best thing for our country? And they didn't realize that they were destroying our country. The villain of judgment at Nuremberg is patriotism. People did what they did because they were good patriots. And that's evil, you know. And one thing I found in knowing what has happened in justice is that we as Americans, we like to think of ourselves as extraordinary. The fact of the matter is, we're not. When it comes to these terrible, serious crises, we go down, you know, like other people do and compromise. And so I felt that very deeply. And it's important to know what happened in Germany. Because, look, you would think with millions of people killed, there's anti-Semitism in France now. They kill the children. What do they want? Their bones? And for it still to be going on, you know, is really almost beyond comprehension.
I don't think I always believed in predestination, but in this particular case, I do, because when I was 16 years old, my very, very first film was for Stanley Kramer, called The Sniper. It was a little tiny film, and I had about 3 lines in the film, and I never got a chance to meet him during that shooting, but those 3 little lines in that film got a lot of publicity and introduced me into the industry. 2 or 3 years later, I got a chance to be on a television show, a very, very important role. It got a lot of good press, a lot of good reviews, and Stanley Kramer called my agent. He had seen it and he asked about me. He was looking at me as a professional and saying, I think she's damn interesting, and maybe I can use her somewhere along the line. And that happened off and on for several years, and he never did use me, however, but he kept talking about it, and I'd never met him. But in 1965, I was cast opposite Jerry Lewis as his leading lady in a film called The Disorderly Orderly. And right across the soundstage from Jerry Lewis's set was Stanley Kramer making Ship of Fools. I took a chance for the first time in my life. I'd never done this before, but I walked on to that closed set just so I could maybe see Vivien Leigh. And there she was. There she was walking the gangplank with a camera following her. And I was just transfixed. And I heard this voice saying, "Who is that?" You know. And I looked up and I thought, oh my God, that's, I couldn't think of his name. That's whoever the director of that film was, you know. And I thought, oh, I'm going to get thrown off this set. And the makeup artist, who apparently I'd worked with somewhere along the line, came up to me and came up to Mr. Kramer and said, "That's Karen Sharp, and she's blah, blah, blah." He said, "Oh, you can stay." And I thought, oh, that's good. So I stayed for a little while, then I left. And then a few days later, that makeup artist in the commissary came up to me and said, "Karen, why didn't you stick around? Because Mr. Kramer, Stanley Kramer," I said, "Oh, that's who that was, "wanted to meet you." And I said, "Well, isn't this film cast? There's nothing in it for me." And he said, "I don't think that's what he had in mind." And I said, "Oh, don't get me involved with that. I never get involved with those people. I never go out to, I never do." And I didn't. I kept my private life and my professional life very separated and didn't really date people in the industry. Well, Stanley began to pursue me, and I would always decline. And it took him 1 year, really, pursuing me before I ever gave him a dinner date. And I met him at a restaurant and spent the whole time looking at my watch and said, "I'm terribly sorry, I have to go." And it was a disastrous dinner. And I thought, I will never work for this man. Well, we were married about 8 months later. So sometimes when things are meant to be, no matter how much you try to stay away from it or destroy it or whatever, it's just meant to be. So that's why I said it was probably predestined, and then I was lucky to be with him for almost 36 years.